Hey, what's up, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about the number one thing. I'm not saying that just so you watch the video, but honestly, if there was one thing I could teach everyone about their income taxes, this seriously would be it, okay? Now, I've got this shirt on today. I know you can't see the whole thing, but it says, Certified Public Accountant, we know how to make 1 plus 1 anything you need it to be. I wore it because it's funny. I bought it because it's funny, but also, it's true. I mean, I can't make 1 plus 1 3. Well, sure I could. I could write that on a tax return or whatever, but I can't actually, in reality, make 1 plus 1 3. 1 plus 1 will always be 2. Now, I can prepare a tax return and get you exactly whatever refund you want. Yeah, that's right. I can prepare a tax return and I can get you to the dollar exactly the refund you tell me you want. We would both go to jail for preparing that tax return, but I could do it because I understand the tax return. So anyway, back to the point. This is the number one video I wish I could get every American across the country to watch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare to myself to the other guy or gal when preparing a tax return, and I'm going to show you the most important thing I think you need to understand about your tax return. So I've got an example here of leading software for do-it-yourself tax return. Let's just call that TT for short. No specific software there in mind. Myself and, of course, like I said, the other guy. So let's take a look at a tax return. Let's say you come in and you're a W-2 employee and you've got $50,000 of wages, you have some deductions, you qualify for a tax credit, and of course you have federal income tax withheld on your pay as well from your employer. So let's look at the leading do-it-yourself software. W-2 income, $50,000, all right? You have deductions that you qualify for of $5,000. Now these numbers are just made up for the sake of easy math and getting a point across, but let's pretend this is the standard deduction. It's much more than that for single, a lot more than that for married filing joint, but let's just say that's the standard deduction. That gives you taxable income of $45,000. Say your tax rate's 10%. The tax is $4,500 on that. Let's say you qualify for a tax credit. Let's just call that the child tax credit for now. Not the right amount, but you get what I'm saying. It's for the sake of illustration. $500 of tax credit, $6,000 that you had withheld from your pay, so it's your own money that you prepaid taxes of $6,000. Now what's going to happen is income minus deductions is taxable income. Taxable income times your tax rate is the amount of income tax you're responsible for. The credits reduce the amount of tax that you owe, and then the withholding is what you've already paid in, and that determines whether or not you owe a balance or get a refund when it comes to tax time. So in this particular example, you get a refund of $2,000. Now, every single software or pop-up shop, there's these other shops that pop up. They just do that during the year, during tax season, and all of them have the sign out there that says, we will get you your maximum refund. Okay, that's a marketing gimmick that I cannot stand. I hate it because this is math, okay? Now, there's some other things. We'll cover those in a minute. But let me pull back the shade here. Let me pull back the curtain here and reveal the secret, all right? If you come to me with the same input, you are going to get the same refund. If you go to the other guy and you give him the same W-2, same standard deduction, same child tax credit, same withholding, this is reality, okay? This is what happened during the year, and the math is the same. This minus this times that minus that, refund or balance due. It's the same math problem. I don't care who you go to, where you go, it's the same exact thing. You will get the same exact result. Now there is a way, because you don't have to use pennies or cents on a tax return. There's the tax table that it looks it up if there's a range of income. So you might get a couple of dollar variation here or there. But if you're getting more than a $10 variation, somebody did something wrong. All right. So I don't think I really need to belabor that point, that same data, same math equation, same refund or balance due. That's the bottom line. Now, well, how does that help me as a CPA convince you that you should stop using this software or you should stop using the other guy? Okay, well, now we're going to jump into most common mistakes, the things that you need to be aware of, the reason why you need to look at this basic outline of your tax return and understand what's going on. You don't need to be able to prepare the form. You don't need to be able to prepare all the additional schedules and worksheets that go into this, but you need to look at the basic equation, know what happened during the year, and feel comfortable with what you're signing, because the moment you sign it, leading software, not responsible for your return. Other guy, not responsible. Myself also, not responsible other than a mistake we made. You're responsible the moment you sign it 100% for what's on that tax return, which is why I want you to really understand it, which is why I sit down and go through tax returns with every client that I have, unless they just really don't want to, because I want you to understand what you're taking responsibility for when you sign that return. All right, let's jump into most common mistakes and why I think it is best to stick in this middle column and come to me, or honestly, with another reputable tax preparer. All right, when you go this self-prep software route, if you've got a W-2, it's pretty simple. Everything that you need is on the W-2. You're going to type in the $50,000. You're going to type in the $6,000 of withholding, and you're going to tell it, I have one kid. This is their age. You're going to tell them I'm single or married filing joint. That's where your standard deduction is going to come in. And then the math equation just happens, okay? Well, if you have a side hustle and you have self-employment income or a small business, or you're just self-employed with no W-2, now we've got a lot of other things that we got to work through. Now this software though, they're going to walk you through their entire questionnaire, whether any of it applies to you or not, because they got to make sure that they've asked you everything. You're going to have to click on the extra information. You're going to have to read, do I qualify for this tax credit? If I'm a self-employed business, or I own rental property, or I have a side hustle, what am I allowed to deduct? Again, this, in our example, we said was the standard deduction. But with business income and expenses on a Schedule C, sole proprietor, 1099 contractor, whatever you want to call yourself, side hustle, if you have income, it's taxable, and then there might be some expenses you could deduct against that. The only way to know what's a valid expense is to go down the rabbit trail in self-help, tax software land and do the research yourself. Because let's say you subtract $5,000 from your income because you think that it was a reasonable deduction for your taxes. Okay, well, you might have just dropped that from 50 to 40 because you took $10,000 of expenses against that income that you thought was okay to do. That's going to make your taxable income 35. That's going to make your tax 3,500. The withholding and everything else stays the same. This refund is going to go up to $3,000. Okay, and you're going to do that in the self-help software, and then you're going to show up at my door and say, dude, this software got me a higher refund than you did. I'm sticking with them. Like, what's the deal? How come you're supposed to be this professional? Why can't you get me a better refund? Okay. And the problem is you paid the wrong amount of tax. You deducted expenses that you couldn't deduct in this example because you didn't understand what was and wasn't deductible, because you're doing things at night instead of, I'm in this day in and day out. I see it over and over again. I research it. I spend time. It's not that I'm smarter than you. I don't believe that at all. It's because this is what I spend my time focusing on, just like you spend your time focusing on whatever your job is. You're better at that than I am. Okay? Well, this is one common mistake. You took something you didn't actually qualify for. What's going to happen is you get caught by the IRS. They come back and they say, hey, your taxes should have been $1,000 higher. You should have only gotten $2,000. So please send us a check for $1,000. Oh, by the way, that was a year ago. It took us a year and a half to catch this mistake. Therefore, send us another $500 in penalties and interest. So not only now do you have to shell out the $1,000 you should have covered or paid the first time around, and you should have gotten less of a refund, but this $500 is completely out of pocket that you would have never owed had you done the tax return correct in the first place. So one way I say that I can save you taxes isn't making your refund amount higher per se, but I can save you this $500 by doing the return accurate the first time. Is that worth my fee? Probably, because it might be less than $500. All right, go to the other guy. Other guy, I've seen where, hey, I worked with this guy. He kind of does this on the side. He might not know any more about taxes than you do. So he might make this same mistake that you made in the self-help software. The other thing is, I've seen this over and over and over again. The equation comes out here, but you tell other guy, hey, look, I thought I was going to get a higher refund. Or other guy just knowing, he knows from the get-go that this is the number you care about. That's the number every single person cares about. What am I getting back? Okay, I got a video to tell you to ignore that number. I'll touch on that just a little bit in a second. But that's the number every single person cares about. What's my refund? What am I getting back? How high can you make that number? Other guy knows that that's the number you care about. So what he will do, I have seen this over and over again. Not every single one of them, but plenty of them, which is why you need to be able to look through this and know what's going on, because they will do it and not tell you they did it. Self-employed business, they'll throw on an extra $10,000 or $20,000 of business expenses that either you didn't actually spend or weren't really legitimate deductible expenses, such as personal things that they said were business and put it on the return, which aren't allowed, or they just make it up. I've seen them just make it up. Drop that number down, drops this number down. What do we drop it by? We dropped it by 20,000, drops that number down, drops that number down, increases your refund to 4. You're super happy now, but they don't tell you that they just put in made up expenses. All right. You get audited for that, which Schedule C business is one of the highest audited schedules, because they know that there's no W-2, there's nothing verifying the income or the deductions there. So you can just make stuff up, roll the dice on whether or not the IRS is going to audit you or not. And if they don't, you get away with it. I mean, you did something illegal and you get caught. You not only pay penalties, significant interest, you do it on purpose, you could actually go to jail. But anyway, they roll they play the audit lottery and say, maybe we don't get caught, we get an extra $2,000, all right? This guy can get in trouble for that, yes, but you have to report him, or he has to somehow get caught to get in trouble for that. Typically what's going to happen is you're going to get the letter saying, please justify these expenses. This guy's going to hem and haw about how you told me you wanted this deduction and you told me that's what you had. And so he gets off the hook. I promise you, 9 times out of 10, he gets off the hook. And you owe an additional $2,000 in taxes, plus now penalties and interest are even more than they were before. That's another $1,000 in penalties and interest. So now you got to come out of pocket $3,000, which $1,000 would have never happened again. I'm saving you $1,000 in this situation where you thought you were getting $2,000 more back, but by the time you get that IRS letter, I saved you $1,000. I can almost guarantee you my fee was less than that. Okay. The other thing they'll do, this child tax credit, they'll throw in education. There's an education credit, and they'll say, okay, let's put in these education tuition expenses where you never actually went to college and paid those expenses in this tax year, but they give you an extra $2,000 of tax credit. Boom, we just took that to $6,000 refund by putting in a tax credit. I've seen this too. I got the prior year return, asked the taxpayer, were you in college last year? Did you spend this in tuition? Nope, sure didn't. They put it on there just to increase the refund because that's the number they know you're paying attention to. This is why I say ignore the refund number. What is the number one factor? The biggest factor in this particular example in that number is actually your withholding in this W-2 example. This could be estimated tax payments that you made as a self-employed person through the year or whatever. But that's the number one factor, is your withholding. You're getting your own money back. You want to actually pay attention to how much taxes you actually owe. So legitimate ways to do this would be, you have a side business, you have a home office, you didn't know that you could deduct some legitimate home office expenses if you qualify. I'll walk you through. Here's the qualifications. Do you qualify? I'm not going to show up to your house. I don't actually know if you qualify, but I'm going to ask you questions so you know if you get checked by the IRS that you actually qualify or not. So I might come up with deductions that you didn't know about, or this guy was just blowing through your return and didn't think to stop and ask you about. And so maybe this number isn't actually 50, but in reality it is 45 because there's some other expenses you could have deducted against that. Okay. There's also the tax credits. I corrected a return one time where the person did go to school. This person blowing through the return didn't ask the question, but they did actually go to school, pay tuition. They did qualify for the tax credit. We put it on here. Let's say that was $1,000, bumps that credit up to $1,500. When we got these extra expenses, that bumped us down here to 40. That bumped down to 4,000. So again, knowing things that you actually qualify for, and then perhaps in that particular situation, 4,000, 6,000, that'd be 2, 3, 3,500. So your refund's now 3,500 instead of 2,000. Someone else blowing through the return real quick. Pretty simple, get you the $2,000 refund. We spend more time. We actually talk about what you qualify for, what you don't qualify for. We save you some penalties and interest here by not taking the things you qualify for, but maybe actually do get you a higher refund because you do qualify for some things. And that's how, that's how the tax return works. You want to make sure though, again, I tell people, the refund, do not judge me on your refund. Please, your refund is based on facts and circumstances. There's some gray area in the tax code, and I will always tell you, here's what tax court cases have shown, here's what IRS guidance says, here's what the law says, here's interpretation and gray area. I will always, always give that to you and let you know what I'm comfortable with as a professional, what my professional ethics say, what my professional responsibilities are, and what I'm allowed to do, and what you're able to do as well. And then it's up to you. Sometimes, other times it is just black and white. All right. It's what happened. This is your W-2. This is your withholding. That's what happened. This is the number of kids you had and whether or not you get a child tax credit based on their age. That is black and white. Okay. A lot of things are, but there's some that aren't. And I'll let you know when those come up. But do not judge me on that refund because that's the math problem. If I can remind you of something, or I can think of something, or there's something that you have where we get the taxes down, this is the number you actually care about. How much taxes am I actually responsible for? Let's get that as low as possible because then you could lower your withholding. If your tax goes down, you can fill out a new W-4 maybe, lower your withholding, have more money in your paycheck each time, but get a lower refund. Well, who cares? You had more money in your paycheck. It's your money anyway. The refund is your money anyway. So let's figure it out where maybe you get a lower refund, but you have more money in your paycheck every week when you get paid. Let's pay attention to how much tax you're paying, not how much refund you're getting. All right? So don't judge me based on that number. I'm going to try to get you the highest refund I can, of course, but really more by trying to make you pay the least amount of tax that you're legally responsible for. By the way, the IRS doesn't say you have to pay as much tax as possible. You only have to pay as much tax as you're legally responsible for under the tax code. So that's what everyone's trying to do, is reduce your tax amount, reduce your taxable income, reduce the tax amount, take the credits you qualify for. Again, I'm going to reiterate, basic math problem. This may or may not be, this bottom line right here, isn't the only way that I can save you money. I can also save you these penalties by doing the return right the first time. But in order for you to really see the benefit of that and understand the value in paying someone like myself, who again is reputable, will be open and honest with you, will take the time. So many preparers now are not taking the time to sit with clients because they know they can make more money just cranking out returns without taking time to explain it to you and without really taking time to understand what's going on, and then they might, even if they don't intentionally do it wrong, they might unintentionally do it wrong because they're just trying to crank out so many returns to make more money for themselves. That's why I sit down with you and go through the return, make sure we both understand what's in there. So again, I'm going to try to save you taxes now. I'm going to definitely try to save you the penalties and interest by doing the return right the first time. So please think about that when you look at the value of hiring someone who might cost a little bit more than this other option because maybe they're doing it in a better way. My name is Brad. I'm with Wooten CPA. My goal is to bring peace to your tax and finance responsibilities. A huge way that you're going to have peace is by understanding the basics here. Again, you don't have to know how to do the return. You don't have to want to take the time to do the research and prepare the return yourself, but you got to understand the basics so that you can evaluate the preparer that you're working with. Please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button on this particular video. Share this video because, again, I wish everyone knew this part of it. Basic math. This guy can't get you any more without changing something up in the equation. This one can't get you any more without changing something up in the equation, which potentially was either wrong or fraudulent. Thanks so much for watching.